Good afternoon, and welcome to the session on the many facets of the county economic development. I'm Anita Feltz, a member of Southampton County Board of Supervisors and chairman of VACO's Community Development and Planning Steering Committee. As this period of natural economic uncertainty wealth, tourism is a big business in Virginia. In 2010, visitors to our state generated $18.9 billion in revenue and supported 204,000 jobs and provided more than $1.3 billion in state and local taxes. Our panelists will focus on that aspect of local economic development. We are pleased to have with us this afternoon Delegate Terry Kilgore, Jay Langston of the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, and Judy Winslow, Director of Tourism for Smithfield and Isle of Wight County. Delegate Kilgore has represented Virginia 1st House of Delegates District since 1994. His district now comprises all of Lee and Scott counties, the city of Norton, and parts of Wise County. In the 2011 session, he was chairman of the House Committees on Commerce and Labor and a member of the Courts of Justice and Rules Committee. In addition, he is the chairman of the Virginia Tobacco Indemnification and Community Realization Commission, an organization with one mission: to revitalize the tobacco-dependent communities. Delegate Kilgore received his undergraduate degree from Clish Valley College, now known as UVA Wise, and a law degree from William & Mary. Jay Langston is a senior project research manager with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, where he is responsible for the project support group. Among other things, this group helps develop economic development policy for the Commonwealth. Prior to joining the state, Jay was the executive director of Virginia's Gateway Region and on the staff of Chesterfield Economic Development Department. He also held the position of the Virginia Economic Developers Association. He received his PhD and master's from Virginia Commonwealth University and his undergraduate from Georgia Tech. Judy Winslow has been the Director of Tourism for Smithfield and Isle of Wight County since January of 2006. She has over 25 years of experience in the hospitality industry with both convention and visitor bureau management and in hotel sales, as well as top-level marketing positions in long-term care and television production. She has just completed her term as president for the Virginia Association of Convention and Visitor Bureau. We're going to give each one of these people about 20 minutes to speak, and then we will have a 10-minute question and answer session. And we'll start out with Delegate Kilgore.
Thank you. I guess I could sit down too, like everybody else. I didn't know whether to stand or sit, but be rest assured I'm not going to take the full 20 minutes. So we will, yeah, all right, that's good, that's good. I'm not going to take the full 20 minutes, but I'm glad you read where I represent, because after the redistricting, you have to, everything got realigned, and I used to represent part of Washington County, a big part of Washington County, and now I just border Kentucky and Tennessee. I go into Wise and represent most of Wise County now, and it's good that the election's over. I know that a lot of y'all are glad the election's over, and hopefully you had good luck in the elections. But we're going to talk a little bit about the Tobacco Commission first. Let me brag on Virginia a little bit. We've been the #1 state to do business in the last 2 out of 3 years, I believe. And we rank up there. It's between us and Texas every year. And Texas, they're a lot bigger than we are, so we have to work twice as hard. And with the governor and with VEDP and all our partnerships together, I think we've been able to have a lot of successes over the last few years. And if you'll notice our economic indicators compared to other states, we're doing a lot better than other states are doing right now, because I think it's because of some of the emphasis we have placed on creating jobs, job going on our overseas trips to attract businesses and things of that nature. I think that's really helped us lessen the burden here in Virginia on this bad economic downturn. So it's something that I want to applaud the governor's office for, and I know that he's, last I heard, I think he's like, where in the world is Matt Lauer? He's somewhere between Israel and India today. I don't know, somewhere headed that way toward India, because he went to China last year. India and China, those countries are becoming big trading partners, and they're big economic powers now with billions of people, and we need to make sure that we sell Virginia products to those countries, and we're proud that the governor's over there making sure that we sell those Virginia brands. So now to the Tobacco Commission. I know a lot of you in here heard a lot about the Tobacco Commission, what we're doing, and how that we're able to invest in South Side and Southwest, and the others are wanting to know, hey, why didn't we get a piece of that tobacco money? I know how that goes, but in 1999, this was something that we in the legislature decided that we would like to do with the tobacco dollars. We needed to set up some way that those dollars got invested back in South Side and Southwest. I remember Governor Gilmore was the governor then, and Senator Hawkins, Delegates Whit Clement, Ted Bennett, myself, Senator Wampler, a lot of us got together and trying to figure out how to set something up that would take some of these dollars and put them back into the communities where that we were losing those dollars that came about because of the tobacco quota, the quota system that was set up then. So we set up the Tobacco Commission. I can say we're one of the only states that's actually set up something like this, the only state that indemnified the farmers for their lost quota. Right now we're close to putting $300 million in the pockets of our farmers all across South Side and Southwest. And some of you may say, well, what does that have to do with economic development? Well, it helped those farmers keep that family farm in the family. It helps them pay taxes to your local government so that they can continue farming. While it may not be tobacco, it may be some other crop, but I believe it's really helped a lot in keeping those farms in the family. But the other side is the economic development side, and that's something that we've really focused on: job creation, education, agribusiness. We have different groups set up under the Tobacco Commission, but job creation has been the primary goal of the Tobacco Commission. We've set up a trough fund, which is the Opportunity Fund, which is what we called it in the Tobacco Commission is simply a deal closing fund. If there's a good product out there, the governor's office or VDP has put money on the table, and we can come in and close the deal. It helps us close the deal, and it's given us a lot of advantages as compared to other states when actually putting dollars on the table for new businesses. And we use a formula basically that we allow so many dollars per job, and we can go over that if it's an industry that we believe is going to be there for the long haul, and we have done that quite often to close deals. TROF has been and the reason TROF is such a good committee is it's a 4-person committee. It takes a unanimous vote of that committee, but it can be turned around within 24 to 48 hours. So we don't have to keep a lot of we wouldn't keep the industry waiting for a decision. So that's been very helpful for us. Another area that we've really invested in is education. Education is an integral part of economic development. If you don't have an educated workforce, if you don't have a skilled workforce, then you're not going to be able, it doesn't matter how much money you put on the table, you're not going to be able to have that industry locate in your area. Right now we have spent close to $40 million on scholarships for kids in Southside and Southwest Virginia, trying to raise that education level so that we can, when these R&D projects come, these highly skilled jobs, because we can show that we have the workforce that would be available to address their needs and that particular industry needs. An area that we're looking at is in special project, with special projects has been mega parks, building mega parks. Met with VDP back 2 or 3 years ago. They advised us that we don't have enough product. We don't have enough big parks where that you can get that big manufacturing plant, a BMW, a Volkswagen, something like that. We just don't have it ready and available. So we decided that we would invest, I believe we put up it's close to $70 million into some mega parks, or some money, a pot of money for mega parks, so that we could have those ready and available, so that the BDP could market those parks for us. So we think that's important. R&D. Charlie Hawkins has always said when he was chairman that we got to have those corporate offices in Southwest and Southside Virginia. We want to have those patents, those innovative folks living and working in our area. So that's why we've put dollars into R&D centers, 5 R&D centers across Southwest and Southside. Down in Southwest, they deal with energy, which is fitting for that area, on how to, whether it's making coal or gas more efficient, or coming up with new forms of energy, and looking at just different types of energy. We think that's important for Southwest. The Southside is working on their R&D projects, advanced manufacturing and things of that nature. So we're excited where they're going with that. Now, broadband has been very, we've heavily invested in broadband in our area. We've got a lot of partners in that, but we think that's not only it's a quality of life issue, but it's also an issue that you have to have that if you're going to attract businesses. The only reason that in Russell County that we were able to attract CGI Northrop Grumman was because we had that broadband in place, so they would locate in Southwest Virginia. We have one of the only 4 in the world. One of the tier 5 data centers is in Duffield, Virginia. And the reasons it's in Duffield, Virginia is because of our redundancy on our broadband. Now, we're excited about one thing that we're doing right now. We are getting ready, this is probably an announcement as such if you have been following the Tobacco Commission, but we have invested $7.5 million with partnering with Verizon to put the first 4G rural network in Southwest Virginia. It's going to be in Lee, Scott, Wise, Dickinson, Russell, Buchanan, and that's going to help us get to that last mile, those individuals who haven't been able to have the high-speed internet, because you go up some of the hollers there in Southwest Virginia, there may be only 2 or 3 houses all the way up through there. You can't justify putting all that fiber up one road that only covers 4 or 5 houses. So we think with this wireless, this new 4G network, that it's really going to pay dividends for us in Southwest Virginia. But the Tobacco Commission, we're here to serve you. We're here to help you. Let me give you some advice on how to get the best bang for your buck. If your county's going to apply, make sure that you talk to staff. Make sure that you run. Even if you have to make a trip to Richmond, make sure you talk to Neil Noyes or Ned Stevenson to see how this works, how it's going to play, which committee it's going to go to. And they can help you so much with the application process. But that's about all I have. I know we're going to have some questions in a few minutes, but Jay here, he's going to take over for me, and you've got the rest of my 20 minutes, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, here you go.
In deference to my fellow panelists, I'm going to try to do this here. I was going to stand up. I made apologies to them earlier. I talked with my hands. You can already see this going. I'm going to try to not knock anything over. Yeah, I was holding on.
I want to picture. Yeah.
Could you pull up the presentation? Delegate Kilgore gave a great intro into, the perfect segue into what I'm going to talk to you about. VDP is the recipient of a new CEO right now, Martin Reilly. If you have not met him, he is traveling around the state in his, I think this is his third or fourth week, and I've seen him twice since he's been on board since October 24th. He's going around the state, talking to the regions, talking to the localities, wanting to get a better feel for what is going on, and is going to take this information and help us tweak our mission. And you're going to see part of what he is already putting in place here. So let's see if I can operate the microphone and the clicker at the same time here. I don't start with the mission statement simply because everybody has a mission statement. This is fundamental to what economic development is about. For us, we're after what we call the basic sector. You'll hear Judy Winslow talking about her sector here. Very important. VDP's mission is just different from that, but we talk about this because we do this in concert with communities. Frankly, where does the project land? It's in a community. It's not the state per se. So we work very collaboratively with the communities. One of our main partners is the Tobacco Commission that Delegate Kilgore talked about. So it's one of our tools. So with the new CEO coming on board, and forgive me, you're going to see lots of pictures here. I'm going to distill a 40-minute talk in less than 20 minutes here. But this is what we're trying to do. The gold accounts are specific company affiliations, targets that our business development managers have. They're to build relationships with these companies. The target accounts are broader sectors in this group. Consultants, still a very important part of the economic development business. And generally, the clientele that they show up with is qualified. There's a project in hand, or they wouldn't be paying someone to represent them. And then existing business. I always talk about this, and our VDP talks about this because still 60 to 70% of our pipeline comes from existing businesses. They are a tremendous asset for us. They also have the customers and the suppliers. So it's a perfect avenue to target for your local level. What all this means, though, is in that small box. What we're trying to do is increase what we call the pipeline. We have a very good success ratio based upon what the legislature historically and continues to do about keeping our regulatory environment very good in Virginia. We consistently rank number 1 and number 2. We just were ranked number 1 again by CNBC. Recently, Paulina, also one of the well-known consulting real estate groups, has ranked us consistently number 1 in the last couple of years. And that's going to play into some of our targeting that we'll talk about here later. But it's to increase the pipeline, because when we get them here, we're running about a 50% success ratio on companies that make a decision. And any of you know that if you're in sales, 1 out of 10 is considered pretty good. Our targets. Again, Delegate Kilgore gave me a great segue. This is from the SRI group that is located. They analyzed the infrastructure that Virginia has, opportunities, assets available, and these are our 4 target sectors. Now, we have some bolded lines, and I'm going to talk about sort of a targeted initiative within one of these, but this is what we try to focus on. It's not that we will not work with companies outside of this, but we have natural advantages in these over some of our competitor states. An example of one that we are starting to focus on is our federal strategies. You may have heard, but if you haven't, Virginia is the 2nd largest defense state in the country. Along with that comes concerns, obviously, when you hear about what's going on in that, but also opportunities. And we are trying to align and even learn about some of our assets so that we can do a better job of reaching out to the companies and the agencies that are in this space. Here's some of the groups that we're particularly targeting. You see the target private companies there. Recent successes with Northrop Grumman relocating their headquarters to Virginia. SAIC, CSC, Huntington Ingalls, which used to be Northrop Grumman, Newport News. Companies like that have major presence in Virginia. They reach out and touch a lot of companies. And a lot of these companies are scattered throughout the state. They're not in Northern Virginia per se, particularly the manufacturers who supply to the defense and the government sectors. So we're trying to get a better idea of what is going on and then matching them with the assets that we have in place. There's also a movement at the federal level of diversification outside of that normal DC, 20 to 30 mile radius. And I had no idea until I looked at the next slide, but the number of agencies that we have in this state with a huge presence. Generally, most of these also have very high-paying jobs as well. So it's a target that we're going on after. This is just one of the 2 slides. These are additional groups. Some of these, like I said, I'd never heard of. The National Geospatial Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, but the Geospatial Agency located approximately 800 jobs in the Charlottesville area. Average wages for those are $70,000 per. It's the kind of investment you like in your community, right? And the federal assets map, and you can see it's scattered all over the state. So another reason for us to pursue this, because it provides an opportunity equally throughout the state to try to attract these. I'm going to talk a little bit about the current targeting that we're doing. A little different tapping than what I normally do, because I'm going to show you some web statistics. This is one of our successes here. The web advertising and so forth sounds kind of nebulous, and I will admit that it is, but I'll show you what it means. I was astounded. I just saw some of these statistics Monday a week ago and was amazed at what it can mean to you, because I've been preaching, if you're at the local level, you need to have a website, because that is the first place a client will go. I'm going to show you some statistics that will back that up. We're trying to beef up our outreach. Again, we've had some very good press, as I alluded to a minute ago. The governor is indeed still in Israel right now and headed to India with a large group doing both trade and reverse investment. The governor is a phenomenal asset to us, because the governor can open doors that nobody's going to listen to Jay if I pick up the phone and call. But a governor can really open doors, and he's a very good salesman on our behalf. We are doing some very industry-specific targeting as well. Media tours where we have gotten people into the state and then get a lot of media play off of that. We were dark. I think this is probably in one of the later slides, but we were essentially dark. When the economy tanked after 2001, we were essentially dark in advertising until 2005. When we got back into the market, we were able to place some ads and try to gain some additional recognition. And then the economy turned bad again. We were dark until relatively recently. The governor, pushing for economic development, helped the legislature helped process. We got $1 million to go back into the market. We have placed all of that in electronic media, and for the reasons that you see here. It's about creating awareness, creating the thought, oh, if I've got a project or if I'm interested in expanding, I want Virginia to come to the forefront. We received $1 million, already been spent. From January to July, we placed very specific targeted web ads in the different publications that you see there. And all of these are .coms. None of this is print. Nearly 35 million impressions. Okay, I had to ask the question, what's an impression? You know, you start getting into jargon here, and I'm going to throw you some more jargon. I feel like I know what I'm talking about. I don't, but I can kind of explain it. An impression is if you pull up an ad, and then it's not a pop-up, but another organization is there and comes up, and it's aligned with that. That's an impression. We have Virginia's website or presence on Forbes.com right now. So if you go to Forbes.com, Virginia opens up along with their website, front page. That's an example. What this meant in getting those 35 million impressions out there, okay. Click-through rate, never heard this term before, CTR, another acronym. Click-through rate is how many people actually then click on that. 0.11%, you got a kid, but let's do the math. 0.11%, 35 million. And then the average is only 0.03. We were actually 3 times the average of people checking those ads. What that distilled through is 112 concrete contacts that our business development people were able to pick up the phone and talk to. 112 companies that we possibly could not have seen otherwise. And if you don't think the web stuff conveys over into recognition, look at the months in red here of while those ads were running and how many people were going to our website and then looking at the information. Now this means they've already had to recognize that ad and they've gone to our website from that. And you'll see the bump, 190,000 and suddenly 200, 250, 300, 370, 400,000. So again, a relatively inexpensive way to reach thousands, tens of thousands of people that we couldn't do the traditional email. Current campaign, because we have been named the #1 state yet again, we're going to follow up with a campaign that we did last year. I don't know if you heard, but we did an iPod campaign of where there were approximately 300 to 400 very specific targeted recipients, CEO level, C-suite level people who received a message from Governor McDonald stating, we just want to introduce Virginia. Virginia's rated #1. Please, if you have the time, you have an interest in Virginia, you're interested in a lower operating environment, I'm trying to paraphrase the message here, consider Virginia. And very well received campaign. We had feedback, very positive feedback in the national media of where CEOs were receiving this and going, look at what Virginia's doing. Isn't this innovative that they're using the media that everybody's talking about and only people think that, our teenagers are using in getting that message through. Well, as a follow-up to that, because we've been rated #1 again, we're sending the iPod Skin protective cover with Virginia's ranked #1 to follow up that to, again, put it in front of consciousness of what Virginia is doing. And then when they click on some of the ads, these are snapshots of what they're seeing in terms of impressions. These are very geographic driven websites. If you go on to yesvirginia.org, you're not going to find this. You can only get this if you are a recipient in the region. So we're able to target the messages by the different publications online. I don't have it active, because you know how technology always fails you at the last minute, but the ad on the left is an intro from the governor. When you click on one of these, you click that link and it's an introduction of, please, consider Virginia. We appreciate the opportunity and so forth. And I'll try to, this is a pop-up mailer. This is going along with the iPod Skin that we just talked about. Direct mail, trying to get through here. boots on the ground. You know, there's still no substitute of being in the marketplace, knocking on doors and talking to people. We intend to ramp that up. A lot of times, our allies, our communities, are partners with us on these trips. So some of the trips that are going on, and you can see the current one going on right now. And then finally, our business, as you well know, is an extraordinarily competitive business. And we have been blessed. The legislature has improved some of the tools that we have and given us some new tools. The one at the top, the CMIG, is a Clean Energy Manufacturing Incentive Grant. It's a sector we want to play in. It's a sector that we have very good assets, but you can be outgunned very easily in some of these projects if you don't have the tools. It's a discretionary and a very selective tool that we put on the table only rarely for certain projects here. The Newport tax credits. This is a response from our legislature to counter the growing competition from South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia with their ports. So if you have a company who is exporting or they're diverting from the port from truck to rail or another means, there is a possibility of getting some fairly significant corporate income tax credits for this. The brownfields grants, we're in the process of assisting the Department of DEQ to build some more products like Delegate Kilgore talked about with EI grants. And then we've seen increased funding in the enterprise zone. We've seen some increased funding to the community colleges for non-credit course training. And then finally, the research fund here that is being implemented by CIT. Had a few $1 million put into that this year and already have, I believe it's 90 applications for approximately $5 million. I think it was a total of like $26 million in requests for that. So we feel like this is a good tool when you have that many requests for it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Judy. Hopefully I didn't go too quick, but we'll be available for questions at the end. Yes. It wasn't me.
Yeah. You with the hands, me with the feet. So, anyway, I'm Judy Winslow. I am the immediate past president of the Virginia Association of CVBs, and I have had the opportunity to work with almost all of your tourism directors as a group of folks who are trying to promote tourism for Virginia throughout not only the rest of the country but the world. We are also huge fans of the governor because the governor is not only the jobs governor, the governor is a tourism governor. And we kind of feel like we've been the stepkids on the block for a long time, but suddenly tourism has a seat at the big table, and we are thrilled to have that and really appreciate the fact that folks are expanding how they feel about economic development, and they are realizing that tourism is economic development. I tend to be an over-preparer, and since I'm the third speaker on your panel today, I'm actually probably going to skip a lot of this, but I do want to let you know that the entire PowerPoint presentation will be available through VACO, so you'll be able to access all of that information. And primarily what I'm skipping is all of the numbers that you can kind of click on and do that research, and it's kind of a big old yawn. And because, well, before I get to that, let me just kind of point out some of the things that are at your place. These are a couple of pieces put together. This particular one's by Lynchburg, and this is by Fairfax County. This tells you a little bit about the economic impact that tourism is making in those particular communities. If you've not been by the VACVB booth in the exhibit hall, I highly encourage you to come by because we've got a notebook at our booth where you can look up what the tourism impact is in your specific community. So if you haven't seen that, please come by the booth, and if you don't have time to do that, I highly encourage you to go to the Virginia Tourism Corporation's website, vatc.org, click on research and click on economic impact, and you can not only look at the economic impact of tourism in your community, you can look at all your neighbors too. So keep that in mind. Travel in all of our lives it's something we all do. So I think because it's something we all do, we tend to lose sight of its impact as an economic driver and a real huge industry, not only in this country, but throughout the world. Think back to the last place of interest that you traveled to. Maybe it was a famous battlefield like Gettysburg or even Pearl Harbor if you were that lucky. Or an important maritime community like San Francisco. Regardless of its previous claim to fame, they're not fighting on those battlefields anymore. But guess what they are doing? Tourists are coming to see those battlefields. So they're hanging those cameras around their necks, they're putting the shorts on, they're mismatching the socks, and they're coming to your community to see exactly what it was that you have got that's famous and that they need to check off their bucket list. Interestingly, tourism is such a huge economic driver, but until recently, it's been so underrated as an industry that the US government didn't even have a travel office. And if you can imagine, we are the only country in the industrialized world that didn't have one, the US. So recently that has changed, and we've just started the US Travel Office, and we think that is going to be a tremendous driver for tourism from other countries to come to Virginia and the rest of the US. Particularly surprising that we didn't have that, because when you consider unemployment is one of the most pressing problems, not only around the world, but certainly in the US, and also in Virginia. US employment's at a rate of 9.1%. Spain is almost at 21%. So not only do travel-related businesses create a significant number of jobs, but travel is one of the few industries, and this is kind of cool, this is one of the few industries where you can go into a job relatively unskilled. You can go in as a busboy, or you can go in as a bellman, and 5 or 10 years later, you come out as an assistant manager or a manager. Last time I looked, that's called the American dream. And that still exists in tourism today, and there are very few industries that you can go in like that and get the experience that you need to come out on the other side and be able to support your family in the manner that they'd like to become accustomed to. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about tourism jobs. A lot of people tend to think of tourism jobs as low paying, as service industry jobs, and yeah, a lot of them are. But guess what? Those jobs can lead to much, much greater possibilities a little bit further down the road. So think about that. Tourism is also a relatively clean industry. Sure, there's the carbon impact of moving bodies from place to place, and the development issues of providing lodging for all those bodies, but compared to mining or manufacturing, tourism's ecological costs are pretty negligible. Now with the Virginia and the U.S. still reeling from the recession, localities are looking for diversified ways to augment their tax base. Anybody in here not looking for ways to augment their tax base? Okay, now we're talking turkey. I'm here to deliver the message that tourism is economic development. It's just the difference between pure economic development and tourism. We tend to think of pure economic development as the whale hunters, and we are the dolphin breeders. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit further as we go. I'm going to do the numbers real fast for you. Tourism is one of Virginia's most powerful industries. It generates $18.9 billion in revenue, supporting 204,000 jobs and providing $1.3 billion in state and local taxes. Local taxes. Okay? Let me just say that one more time. Local taxes. The Virginia Tourism Corporation, that is our state Convention and Visitors Bureau, for every dollar that the state spends, puts in the coffers for Virginia tourism, we get a 5-to-1 return on investment for that. Look at your own communities. I know Fairfax, who's sitting right here in the room, has a 17-to-1 return on investment. So, yeah, pretty much for every dollar you put into tourism, not only is there a return on investment, but it's pretty darn quick. You're going to see that return on investment because what we're doing is we're going out and we're marketing your community, and those people hear about it. That's the other thing about travel. It's kind of an immediate decision. You hear about something, you think it's pretty cool, you say, okay, let's plan our next vacation there. And they do. So it's a pretty quick return on investment, just to let you know. Think a Convention and Visitors Bureau simply welcomes visitors and distributes brochures about attractions? Not so. The CVB has firsthand knowledge of your visitor patterns, their expectations of quality in a hotel, the types of restaurants they enjoy, the stores and retailers that attract them, the events that can fill the hotels with visitors, and much more. Tourism is an economic engine. So when planning for your city or county's future or meeting with commercial and hotel developers, make sure your tourism people are at the table, okay? Your tourism team can be your secret weapon to attracting those dolphins. And once again, I just keep teasing about this because we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Let's talk about employment. The most impressive contribution that travel and tourism makes to the Virginia economy is the number of jobs that it supports. These jobs include a large number of executive and managerial positions, as well as those service-oriented occupations that we talked about. Virginia's travel industry continued to be the 5th largest employer among all non-farm industry sectors in Virginia, 5th largest. During 2010, domestic travel in Virginia directly supported 203,700 jobs. On average, every $92,000 spent by domestic travelers in Virginia directly supported one job. So without these jobs, let's think about that. Without these jobs, Virginia's 2010 employment rate of 6.9% would have been 4.9 percentage points higher, or the equivalent of 11.8% in the labor force. That's huge. So think about the percentage of jobs that are out there that are directly generated by your tourism industry. Domestic travel generated employment in Virginia. The #1 place for employment in the tourism industry is the food service industry. 38.4% of all folks that are employed in the tourism industry are in food service. #2, your lodging industry, 19.3%. And your #3 generator is entertainment and recreation at 18.9%. So remember, these folks going in as waitresses, some of them are coming out as general managers. So that's a really, really good way for your folks to go. We talked about that. I can't believe I haven't actually used this phrase yet, but because all of my supervisors know that I say this all the time. Tourism equals new money. New money. This is not money that your own citizens are putting out of their pockets. This is money that's coming into your community from other communities, and they're dropping it while they're there. They are spending it at your hotels. They are spending it at your restaurants. They're filling up their gas tanks at your gas stations. This is exactly what's going on. And it's funny, we had a gal stopped by the booth yesterday, and really intelligent gal, but I think there may still be somewhat of a disconnect. People tend to think, and I joke about it, that tourists are only those folks that come into your community that have the camera around their neck and the Jesus sandals and the black socks. That's not your only tourist. If you've got folks coming into your community for business-related reasons, we're called the Convention and Visitors Bureau for a reason. All of that is encompassed under tourism. It's not just those folks. So everybody that comes into your community that drops that new money is umbrellaed under that tourism. So yeah, I can't believe I waited that long to say that. More figures, we'll talk about that if you want to look at the PowerPoint. A couple of other things I wanted to talk about was the indirect impact that occurs as travel industry business operators, such as restaurants. They purchase food, they purchase beverages and other goods. That's the indirect impact on your bottom line. There's also an induced impact that occurs when the employees of the hotels, the restaurants, whatever, spend their money. So they're out there spending money that they're earning. So there is a trickle-down effect for every new dollar that comes into your community. Here's my sign. I should carry this around. Yeah, I'm going to put this on my neck, in a necklace. What tourism equals new money. If you do not leave here today knowing anything else, know this: tourism equals new money. All right, in order for your community to have tourism, what can you do? There are four components that you must have in order for people to come and drop that new money in your community. You have to have something to see and or experience. Everybody's got that. Think real hard. There is a reason that your community is special. There is a reason that people want to come to your community. I'm from Smithfield in Isle of Wight. Smithfield is the ham capital of the world. And let me tell you what, Smithfield Foods spends billions of dollars promoting ham around the world. I'm gonna let them. We play the hand we're dealt. When people come to Smithfield, they want to buy hams, they want to see pigs, and we're all over it. So think about what you've got in your community. I just recently talked the CEO at Smithfield Foods into building a huge ham store right smack dab in the middle of Smithfield, because regardless of how many visitors are going to Williamsburg or Virginia Beach, they all want to drive to Smithfield and buy the ham in town. Make sure you know what is special about your community and play it up. They also need somewhere to eat. They need somewhere to stay, and they need something to buy. Never, ever, ever underestimate the power of shopping. Okay? Shopping, other than visiting friends and family, shopping is the next biggest reason that people go anywhere, especially the female segment of the population. And I'm just saying, in case you don't know, guess who's making those travel decisions? It's the women. So keep that in mind. The only thing that you probably don't need to have almost immediately is somewhere to stay, but you need to get it somewhere down the pike. Okay? You can be a day trip destination. A lot of places start out as a day trip destination, but eventually, if you want people to stay longer and spend more money, and that's our mantra, you got to have a place for them to stay. Every time they spend the night with you, they will spend more money. That being said, the whole community must be developed as your tourist attraction. You have to understand your market. What is special about you? That's critical. Here's a thought. If you are thinking of, we don't have any infrastructure, and yeah, creating that infrastructure is real important. Probably the first place you need to prospect for that infrastructure is locally. Your local people will have the best ideas. They will know, oh, you know, perhaps we need a horse and buggy to take people around town. That's an entrepreneurial opportunity. So look to your local folks. They will figure out pretty quickly why people are there and what is lacking and what they want to buy. Entrepreneurs become true prospects when investors and developers are added. So that's all, and gosh, the governor's been real good about that. First-time entrepreneurs and those opening new markets, yes, they're high-risk prospects, but they are really a good bet. Don't forget your not-for-profit enterprises. A lot of museums are not-for-profit. The Smithsonian, how many visitors a year do you think they get? They may say they're not-for-profit, but guess what? Somebody's profiting. And hopefully it's those hotels and those restaurants and that locality in terms of tax dollars. Tourism is economic development. I'm just going to drop this in your lap. Greg Fairchild, who I absolutely think is brilliant, he's a professor at the Darden School of Business at UVA. I went to hear a talk that he delivered a couple of weeks ago, and we're very close to Franklin, and of course International Paper closed recently, and we've been devastated by that actual loss. So he came and talked a little bit about his great idea, and his great idea is something that I think really appeals to the tourism community. Dolphins may not be bigger than whales, but when it comes to economic revitalization, they may be better. We were a community that had all of our eggs in 2 baskets: International Paper and Smithfield Foods. Well, guess what happens when one of those babies goes away? You're devastated, absolutely devastated. So while economic development needs to continue to go after those whales and bring that huge business to replace that huge business that left, here's something you need to think about doing at the exact same time. Get some small businesses in there, and if you can really wrap your arms around the hospitality industry and what that's going to bring to your bottom line, what a great way to go. Tourism is both big business and small business. A lot of people think it's just small business. It's not. It can be very big business. When towns or counties lose major businesses, leaders often try to recruit another big industry to take its place. Really hard, and they're competing against every other locality. It's tough. It's a tough world out there. You guys have done so incredibly well. And that's what whale hunting's all about. Communities might be a little healthier and might be able to make it better for the long haul if they successfully lure groups of smaller companies. That's called dolphin breeding. Whale hunting whales is the all-out effort to win a big contract with a big company that is going to employ lots of folks. But a big plant can pit communities against each other to drive incentives that they want to benefit their company. Make sure you can afford to give away the farm. What happens when the whale leaves? And I mean, we as a community, we know exactly what happens when the whale leaves. It dries up our coffers. So, think about the dolphin breeding. Dolphins are smaller, yep, but they move in pods as groups. There's a tremendous amount of synergy between them. They're intelligent, and they communicate with each other in a coordinated way. Think about dolphins as tourism, and think about what you are doing in your community to build the infrastructure for those dolphins to come. And just to kind of wrap things up, dolphin breeding yields. These are all the things I think dolphin breeding yields. It's an investment in the growth of your local economy. Remember, tourism may be a little slower with the infrastructure, but slow and steady wins this race. An investment in jobs that cannot be outsourced abroad. You'll notice when you went to the banquet last night that there was an army of people that were serving this industry. That can't be outsourced. It will be here. So the American dream still can be realized in the tourism industry. And dolphin breeding is an investment in your culture and heritage. This is a reason for your children to come back to your hometown and your community after college, because there's something for them to do. Think about it. Thank you. Can you tell I'm a little passionate about this?
Does anyone have any questions for either one of our speakers? Yes,
I
sir.
have a very quick one for Mr. Langston. On the slide that you have on website statistics,
Yes, sir.
you mentioned page views. What do you consider unique visitors?
Unique visits.
What's the question?
The question is, what do you consider a unique visit? It is someone coming on to the website. We exclude all internal statistics for clicking on those websites, and it's someone that's coming on to the web page for the first time. Click it. Now, it can be repeating. It can mean the next day they come and do the same thing again, but it's separate sessions. It's not during the same viewing session. You're welcome.
This is for Jay and for Delegate Garrett. For those of us in the southwest and south side, we get a kind of a front row seat to what appears to be the success North Carolina has in attracting industry. Just a couple of things. One, do you have an opinion as to what North Carolina is doing that we can learn from? And two, it appears that their workforce development product is much better than ours. I'd like for you to speak to the role that the workforce development product plays in that. And this is what we're going to care about. Has there been any discussion at the state level about trying to re-engineer the workforce development system we have?
That's
Did everyone hear the question?
He's talking about what North Carolina's doing as with workforce development, things of that nature. And I can say that's one of the things we heard last year when we were doing the whole Rolls Royce, how that North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina was really beating us on workforce development. And the problem we have in workforce development in the Commonwealth is we got too many people doing, quote, workforce development. We've been trying to get all these folks under one umbrella, and it's such a turf battle right now. It's just been hard, but you are correct. Workforce development. Kathy Byram from Lynchburg area has been working on that for the last 4 or 5 years. But it's something we have to get our arms around, because that's what the businesses like a Rolls Royce or somebody like that, they want to go one place and get all their services at that one place, and we have to be able to deliver that. So, Jay.
Thank you, sir. I had a pithy quote one time about workforce services, which I will not repeat it here, and I'm glad to still be employed at BDP. Delegate Kilgore stated it perfectly. To your question about what other states are doing, excellent question. While our rankings are good, that's both a blessing and sort of the bane of our existence, because it can breed complacency in. Our southeastern competitors are very good. They are innovating as well, because we have a big target on us. With the #1 ranking, particularly in the publications we have it conveys something in the business environment. Judy talked about it in tourism. They're dealing with the same thing, competing against North Carolina and the Outer Banks and Georgia and the programs. I'm actually undertaking an update of what we call our competitiveness study. We benchmark Virginia against about 9 other states, our most fierce competitors, North Carolina being one of them. North Carolina's good. They have some very good programs in place that alongside workforce programs that are very enticing to industry. One of those is the non-credit course type of training. It's something that the legislature is trying to beef up. I think we will get there. I think working with the community colleges and how we're structured, we're starting to move in the right direction. But that's one of those. A couple of the other innovative programs that some other states have, and I will back up and explain sort of the difference between us and some of the other states is Virginia has gone toward, in our discretionary incentives, toward a cash basis. Everybody understands what cash means, You know the net present value when you receive it. A lot of the other states deal in credit programs. Credits are great if you can take it. When you read into the fine print, you find out that you can't take all these credits at one time. You can take 50%, and there's only the carryovers, so forth. So a lot of times big numbers, and this is where Virginia, our group gets beat up. We will get requested for a proposal, and well, South Carolina's putting $20 million on the table. Ours may be 5 total. But theirs is a credit. You can count it easily, and you don't have to take it off the ledger on the other side, because you know there's a good chance it will really never come to fruition. So we're looking at those. South Carolina has a payroll rebate type program that is something that, philosophically, from a policy standpoint, does Virginia want to consider that? It gives you some flexibility because it's performance-based, and you'll only pay it out if you receive the income from the payroll. So those are some of the things we're looking at. As you can imagine, it gets very complex. Our tax structures are very different between Virginia and the other states as well, in how the tax monies flow. So it's not an easy thing to actually analyze. And I'm sorry for that very long-winded answer. You can tell I'm in the midst of looking at this stuff right now, and it's always more complex than you realize.
Just a plea, I'm glad you appreciate the workforce as something that's important, and I hope that you will weigh in with your state partners, because we have one-stop systems now for our various workforce agencies, and it's taken 3.5 years to get there, but we now have terrific success in our one-stop, and yet VEC has just abandoned the one we call it. So if you all can please put a stop to the idea of taking your marbles and going home, right when we've invested millions in time to get this to work. It takes a huge amount of browbeating from your level to your agency heads to tell them this is the way it has to be, and they're trying to back away again. So I just wanted to give you that advice.
Are there any more questions? If not, I'd like to thank Delegate Kilgore, Jay, and Judy for making